Well then, I am currently experimenting with a more simpler workflow before I go back to making more long-form content. While the format of how I do my videos have been cemented, I feel like there is more to flesh out considering that I've been making videos on and off, and it's been like that for about a few years by this point. Let's start off by taking a look at a well-known emulator called Mini vMac. For those who do not know, it's a miniature Macintosh emulator, primarily targeting the Macintosh Plus, one of the follow-ups to the original Macintosh, which launched in January 1984. The emulator itself is based on the older vMac emulator, which was slowly abandoned in 1999. Mini vMac was how I originally got a taste of the original Macintosh, as I didn't have the money or my parents' blessing to invest in one. Granted that it was about a year before I got my official start in the vintage computing hobby in 2012. The emulator itself is pretty convenient to use once you get past the essentials needed. For that, you'll need the ROM for the Macintosh Plus, blank virtual hard disk, and a copy of the system's software and floppy images. As for getting the software, there are sites like the Macintosh Garden to look after, but working with Stuffit archives might be a bit tricky. It depends on the platform you are using. Since I'm on Windows, I had to use Windows Sandbox, install the current version of Stuffit, and extract it if necessary. But that can vary depending on what version of Stuffit was used to compress them. At times, I just use Infinite Mac to work around that before saving the hard disk image. Honestly, for productivity use, it's kinda nice to work with, like writing a journal about myself, keeping track of the multiplayer games I usually attend, and even challenging myself by drawing on an ancient version of Adobe Photoshop where I only have one layer and it can only undo once per change. Dang, that's something, I know, But for basically gaming, that can vary from time to time. Most of the black and white era games should be playable depending on how the game was programmed. If it relied on the mouse, for example, controlling the game would be a nightmare, considering you couldn't lock onto the mouse in this emulator. And this applies to the other common emulators at the time as well. Now, not only Mini vMac allows you to emulate the Macintosh Plus, but the Macintosh II as well. The Macintosh II was the first to introduce color and more expandability, something that was unlikely until Steve Jobs was ousted from the company in 1985. Emulating a Macintosh II on Mini vMac is where some of these issues would become even more apparent. The most notable issue is the incomplete emulation of the floating point unit. This made certain games that utilized the floating point unit more problematic to run. One example I can bring up is the Macintosh version of Wolfenstein 3D, which caused strange visual glitches in-game. It is unknown to me if that will ever be fixed in the future, as the latest beta version of Mini vMac dates way back to March 2021. Getting a copy of Mini vMac should be straightforward, through variations, but if you wanted to at least change up the specs and enable certain features that were not present in the pre-compiled builds, that is, you could either compile it yourself with those changes made, or use the variation service on the Mini vMac website. This allows you to pick up a branch of the emulator, which Macintosh to emulate, and what screen size you're after, but unless you paid money for a subscriber code, you are stuck with getting a demo version that throws in a nagging screen. I am not sure about bumping up the RAM, as I haven't looked into compiling it on my own, but emulating the Macintosh II gave me 8 megabytes of RAM to work with. Out of the box, this could be a potential issue for certain programs that might need more RAM to work with. There is one more neat feature this emulator has, and it's the ability to change the speed. You can make it very slow, which could be beneficial for certain applications that are speed sensitive, or you can just go all out, blazingly fast. Mini vMac has the potential for being a very convenient emulator compared to the others, but it does suffer from the issues making it hard to recommend using this as a Macintosh II emulator, But for emulating the Macintosh Plus, you should be fine in that regard. Now, if you were to emulate the color Macintoshes, I would look towards Basilisk II, which I guess would be more fitting for that, but I'll plan to discuss that in another video, honestly. Well, that's about it for this video. What are your thoughts on Mini vMac? Also, remember to take a look at my Patreon in the description down below, so you can have your name featured at the end of my videos and more. Now, for this video's Patreon first vocal shoutout goes to Kuji. Thank you for your support as always. And as always, thank you all for watching and peace out. See ya.